Hello! Welcome to the 0.6 beta update video thing. I keep doing these things. Well, most of the stuff that's changed, I don't really want to talk about. We fixed up the art on the last level. It looks way better. We also, did some back-end bug reporting stuff. We're using, I think, Bugsplat now, and have some stuff on Ouya as well. But the main thing I wanted to talk about, which I guess isn't what we spent spent all of our time on, but is kind of interesting to talk about, is graphics options. So, we have graphics quality, we have low, normal, and extreme. Low basically runs it without AntiAliasing, and I think less blurs, no blur on the shadow buffers, so it looks not as good, but that's basically what we're doing on Ouya. Normal is what it used to do, and extreme is what I'm running at now. And as you can probably see, the game looks very, very similar. Really, the graphics options are almost more of, trying to make the most out of your expensive video card and eat up all your power. But there are some things we can do for the graphics that will help the quality, and so we figured we would give some options. So the first thing in the extreme graphics that's cool is that we're using 16x anti-aliasing, and so basically, I've talked about it many times, but the animated characters are polygonal. They're basically opaque polys, and we animate the points, creating the mesh, and that's how we do our animation system, and it gives us blending and all sorts of things that's cool. Now, the difference is that the issue with that is that you get a hard polygon edge around the silhouette of the character. Which is not the end of the world, but it sort of makes them stand out in the, otherwise 2D looking world. So now we do that. Well, normally we have the normal build uses 4x anti-aliasing if you support it, and that looks good. 16x anti-aliasing looks better. I don't think I can do a side-by-side comparison because I think we have to recreate the window, which will probably end the Fraps recording, but you can look at the silhouette of the character, play around with it in your build. It looks a bit better. Yes, anti-aliasing 60x is good. And the other thing I'd like to talk about is the anisotropic filtering. So we turn on, I don't know, something ridiculous for the anisotropic filtering. So I don't know how much graphic settings you play with, or how often you play with graphic settings, but anisotropic filtering is kind of complicated to explain, but firstly, 99% of the game benefits absolutely zero from anisotropic filtering. So because we're doing a lot of 2D art, all of the things are just images, and so they don't benefit from anisotropic filtering at all because they're the same. Probably I should have started with explaining what anisotropic filtering is. So basically, you create polygons. Characters are created out of polygons. At least in our game, they're animated polygons. Everything else is just a quad, which doesn't benefit from anisotropic filtering, as I was saying. But now the thing is, when you look at that door, so the door, when you open it, it actually changes the shape of the polygon. That's just an animation where we're squishing the polygon. Now, when you look at the Squish polygons, or basically the sort of trapezoid that this forms, as it sort of goes away from the camera, it creates problems and sometimes appears blurry. The reason it appears blurry is because without anisotropic filtering, it uses one map level for the entire thing. Well, that's not entirely true. It uses like 2 mapping levels for the entire polygon. Maybe, I think. Yes, it should. Something like that. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but let's pretend I know exactly what I'm talking about. But basically, it uses 2 for the entire polygon. Now, the entire polygon can appear in the sort of the foreground close to the character, or close to the camera, and also in the distance. So it can be distorted and have the perspective effect. And so what anisotropic filtering does is, based on how distorted the polygon is, it will incorporate other map levels. So map levels are basically just lower resolution versions of the same texture. So on PC we generate full MIP chains, or maybe we don't generate full MIP chains, but just a few MIP chains. I don't know. On Ouya we don't use MIP mapping for many things, just because it adds to the memory, and you know, the Ouya isn't the world's greatest hardware. So anyway, anisotropic filtering is enabled on a few things by default. Just there were a couple things that didn't look quite right without some anisotropic filtering, although maybe we fixed one of those. I can turn it off. And then once I added anisotropic filtering, I figured, why not give an option, you know, go wild and put it on everything for those who, you know, have an expensive video card. So we did. And that's the graphic settings, and really, I don't know how interested you'll be. I mean, long term, we could maybe have like an advanced thing where you can set your anti-aliasing level and set your anisotropic filtering, which again does very little, but I think the performance of, you know, the performance cost on modern graphics hardware for anisotropic filtering is pretty minimal. So I mean, we can probably do some sort of you know, select your you know, the features you want, but right now I think if you have a nice new card, you know, you should be able to run on extreme. If you have, you know, something kind of older, you should be able to run on normal, and you'll be very hard pressed to see the difference. And if you're running on like an old integrated graphics card, then you'll be you should be able to run on low and get a good frame rate. But personally, I think you'll want to run at 1080p 60. I think that's where the game looks the best. Obviously, we can't guarantee that you run at 1080p 60 on you know, on our end, but you know, the graphic settings will hopefully help you get closer to that. The problem is that because all the art is authored for 1080p, it doesn't look as good at lower resolutions, and we're basically pulling in the same amount of texture data, and then you're doing MIP blending and blah 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 blah. So anyway, this is a very boring, very technical overview of some of the changes in the beta build. Obviously, the most important changes I don't really want to talk about. They're spoilery and whatnot. But anyway, if you care about graphic settings, they're here now, and I explain to you what they do and how they make very little difference. So, I mean, that was sort of our hesitancy to include them, but we had some time, and we figured, you know, why not? But I think the game will run well on normal for most. I mean, will look quite good on normal and run well, and then, you know, if you want to go up to extreme, be my guest. So anyway, I'll sign off now. But I hope you enjoyed my very technical explanation of our graphics options. Thanks for watching.